On Saturday, September 24th, 2016, emergency services received a call. On the other end of the line was a 6-year-old girl saying she and her younger sister were scared. Their older sister had gone missing, and the 3 other adults in the house were dead. This is the Yost family murders. Our story begins in Fullerton, California, the home of the Yost family. Chris Yost was the head of the household, and although he made his living through a variety of odd jobs, most of his time was spent working on cars. Whenever he wasn't working, however, he played the drums and guitar. His wife, Jennifer, was a stay-at-home mom who ran a store on Etsy where she sold homemade jewelry. The couple had 3 daughters, and despite being a low-income household, they lived perfectly fine lives. However, there was one thing that set them apart from other families. As both parents were artistically inclined, they yearned for something more than just a monotonous home life. Jen would make several posts about her slight dissatisfaction with life as a stay-at-home mom, specifically due to her lack of social interaction, having a bad day, sort of feeling down and depressed and lonely, needing company or to get out of the house. Just one of those days I want to lay down and cry or cuddle with someone alone. In 2012, this inclination to pursue alternative endeavors led Jennifer to the furry community. She created an account on the website Fur Affinity. Her profile's bio read, "I am an artist. I enjoy jewelry, writing, drawing, painting, photo editing, photography. I also do fetish modeling, costume makeup, costume design, clothing alteration, and repair. I'm a very nurturing person, yet I'm very protective, especially when it comes to my kids and my close friends. I don't like seeing anyone upset. Ask anyone who knows me." Based on her profile, we can see that her fursona, her furry alter ego, was some kind of green-horned demon dog. As her bio read, she also posted some suggestive content, which naturally attracted her to join DeviantArt, looking for like-minded furries. Like her Fur Affinity profile, her bio on DeviantArt also emphasized how much she cared about her family and her close friends. She posted across various websites under a few online aliases, such as Jen Ma, meaning Jennifer, mother, as well as the Jaded Raven. While Jennifer was dedicated and active on her accounts, she wasn't a particularly popular member of the community, or popufur as they would call it. However, she maintained a good standing, especially since she was careful about how she juggled her home life as a mother and her furry lifestyle. Ever since she began partaking in it, she made an effort to balance her life, which resulted in her introducing her eldest daughter, Caitlyn, to the furry community. Eventually, Caitlyn also got her own profile on Fur Affinity, and much like her mother, she was also an amateur artist, offering commissions free of charge for anyone who wanted them. "Hello, I am Daydreamer Foxwolf. I am an artist that's still learning, but I'm pretty good at what I do. I am open for requests, mostly all the time. All you have to do is send me a note. I am a hugger, not a fighter. And all I have to say to people who hate me, haters gotta hate. Sorry." She was also pretty active on Facebook, where she shared tidbits about her life, one of them being that she wasn't just a furry, but a brony as well, meaning she was a fan of My Little Pony. Although she was already in contact with a fellow community member and trying to design her own fursuit from scratch, Caitlyn started saving money, trying to scrounge together $630 so that she could purchase a professional suit. Keep in mind that so-called good fursuits will often run for thousands of dollars. Caitlyn and her mother also went beyond simply interacting with fellow furries online, as they frequently attended various conventions where Caitlyn was often seen with friends, wearing their fursuit heads. In this particular video, we can see her badge is marked with minor, and given the video is from 2014, she would have been 15 years old at the time. On the surface, it looks like Caitlyn lived a normal, healthy life for a kid, even if the degree of her participation in the furry community was a bit unusual for someone her age. However, once you prod deeper, it's clear she was struggling with some serious issues, and she made no effort to keep these issues private. On her Twitter, she often spoke about drinking hard liquor, usually in relation to her furry lifestyle, and occasionally paired with casual drug usage. Given, at this point she was 17, and teenagers in high school do drink or do other dumb things, but in Caitlyn's case, her substance issue appeared to be connected to her being bullied at school and not having the best relationship with her family, both of which she spoke about openly. The bullying in particular was attributed to her appearance, and perhaps also because of her insecurity about her looks, she started dating relatively early, and with a guy that was 3 years older than her, no less. On its own, this relationship seemed harmless, but it establishes that her parents had no issue with her dating someone older at that time, and this will become relevant later on. Despite her also having problems with her family, Caitlyn grew pretty close to her mom, probably as they bonded over their interest in the furry community. While her social life at school wasn't doing too good, her mom could provide her with the alternative, attending conventions and fursuit meetups together. One specific social circle they were members of was La Habra Fur Bowling, a California-based furry group of friends who would get together and, well, bowl. And it's at this group that they would meet our next two people of interest. Frank Felix registered his Fur Affinity account in 2007, just 2 years after the site's creation. He was, by all means, a tried and true member of the furry fandom, and you can tell just how dated it is now, considering his commission status is set to derp. His persona was a dragon, and he was a pretty edgy guy in the way a lot of late 2000s and early 2010s profiles were. I was kidnapped by a rogue government op. They turned me into a friggin' alien, only to find their weaknesses. Then I escaped and lived a good life. Frank was a unique guy, to say the least. He listed his gender identity as switcher, meaning he fluctuated between being male and female. Simultaneously with his gender and furry identities, Frank was huge into firearms and was a hardcore military enthusiast. On his profile, he lists his range accuracy and writes, "I shoot the whole bullet. That's 65% more bullet." I'm not really a gun guy, so someone in the comment section will have to fill me in on what this means. He also had a poem on his profile. "I can now see what I really want in an intimate relationship, to which I am not really ready for yet. I still need to recover, but I need complete and wholehearted honesty, complete transparency between each other. If I can't get that, then I can do anything else. Because from the beginning, I am completely blunt and honest. I give the raw truth, and a lot of people hate that. As well, I dig for the truth, all sides of the story, not just one perspective. Other than that, I need someone who can show me my true worth, because to myself, I am still worth less than dirt that is treaded on by many. I am too broken to be repaired, too broken to be placed back together. A hollow excuse of a person that tries to make everyone else happy so they don't end up like me." Now, while I don't want to judge someone too harshly for being cringe and emo in the late 2000s, this guy wasn't a teenager. He was 25 years old when he met Caitlyn and had that as his Fur Affinity bio. He was wearing a gas mask in his DeviantArt profile picture with a visible V for Vendetta poster on his wall. "I am the lone survivor of an experiment codenamed Black Poison, and I live with the memory that I lost 6 of my best friends trying to get away, but I fight on." While some of the art that he made and posted to his DeviantArt was pretty well done, it does seem that overall Frank was a bit stunted and immature, especially given how well he took to Caitlyn, who was just in her late teens. Based on his profile's comment section, he was relatively well liked, but much like Caitlyn's mother, he was by no means someone of note. Frank repeatedly alludes to being a social outcast and having a troubled past, although its nature is never specified. Additionally, his Fur Affinity profile indicates that he was in a relationship with not one, but 2 people, and on Twitter, he openly engaged with lots of fetish material, an interest he would frequently explore on his DeviantArt, as he often drew his dragon Sona with huge balls for whatever reason. I don't even think dragons are supposed to have balls, let alone huge ones, but making biological sense is never a concern for a gooner of Frank's stature. Over on his Reddit, we can also find some kind of patriotic plane with large breasts, although it kind of also looks like a shark depending on how you interpret it. Despite whatever claims he had that he was in a polyamorous relationship, clearly Frank was a frustrated and lonely guy who was constantly looking for someone to engage with him in that manner. On Reddit, some of his posts show he was trying to have a sexual encounter with a random trans person he had never spoken to before, signaling Frank was so thirsty he was willing to get with complete strangers. On the same account, Frank posted to the r/jacking subreddit, which is pretty much exactly what you would expect from that community name alone. In response to one video, he said, "Whoa man, would have loved to suck that one down." His desperation is echoed on a profile he had on another platform as well, OkCupid. There, he said he was looking for women from the ages of 21 to 42, specifying he was interested in non-monogamy and casual dating, although it's dubious if he had any success. Over on his Facebook account, this loneliness and lack of engagement with other people is further established, as Frank frequently laments how many people have left him, how he felt completely unloved, and how sad and numb it all made him. His vague emo posting, paired with his presence in communities like Furries and Eagle Scouts, were a signal Frank was looking for just about anyone to be in social contact with, which brings us to his best friend, Josh Acosta. While Frank was simply a military LARPer who owned some guns, Josh was actually enlisted, being an Army private stationed at Fort Irwin in California. Based on his Facebook profile, we can see that his interest in bronies had morphed with his affinity for the Army, showing a pony in full Iraq War era attire. It's hard to believe that this combination actually exists. Safe to say, we're not winning any wars anytime soon. His profile picture was a tank, and his posts had various pony artworks where characters donned combat fatigues and held firearms. One particularly crazy post on his profile read, "Dear Princess Celestia, I have completed my training for the Equestria Bureau of Investigation SWAT unit, and with my promotion to sergeant, I have been put in charge of a squad. With this responsibility, I will ensure that the laws of Equestria and my oath are maintained. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle." Thanks to his military military background, Josh was even able to get a position as head of security at a furry convention, further fusing all of his passions together. Although Josh was pretty accomplished, especially compared to Frank, his early life was significantly more troubled than his. Josh was born to a mother afflicted with fetal alcohol syndrome, and to make matters worse, he was born just one day after she got out of jail. Both Josh and his sister tested positive for meth as children, and he was eventually diagnosed with autism, described as naive, emotionally immature, and prone to black and white thinking. His sister, on the other hand, suffered sexual abuse from one of her teachers, but the teacher wasn't prosecuted. Clearly, this household was extremely dysfunctional, so Josh turning out to be a militarized brony was the least bad thing to come out of that. As far as I can tell, Josh and Felix met online through a furry Facebook group, and from there they became friends, attending furry events together in their spare time. With all of these people being furries, and all of them being from California, it's only natural that they would run into each other. At the La Habra Fur Bowling Group, Frank met Caitlyn's parents, but became enamored with their eldest daughter. While his previous relationship had been with a man, he became fascinated with Caitlyn instantly, and they started dating soon after. I hate that when I'm in a relationship, I'm happy, and then suddenly anxious, like, yeah, someone likes me, then suddenly, but what if they don't? Now, this relationship proved to be problematic for a few reasons. Firstly, Frank was significantly older than Caitlyn, with him being 25 years old when they met in 2016, and her being 16 or 17. Her parents apparently didn't approve of their relationship, especially once they found out the two were sexually active. On his Facebook, Frank posted a poem about her for everyone to see, which is strange given how easily his family could have stumbled upon it. Meanwhile, her classmate on Facebook claimed that Caitlyn had gone to school bragging about her new boyfriend. When I went to school with her, she was telling everyone she was pregnant by an older guy, and her parents were happy about it. It's unknown exactly how true this is, but if it is true, it's likely that someone she went to school with informed her parents about what was going on, which eventually led her family to find out. While there's never been any evidence that she was pregnant, we do know that the relationship continued throughout the summer of 2016. But this large age gap wasn't the end of the concerns. At one point, the two attended a furry convention together, at which point she encountered someone closer to her age and began flirting. In front of everyone, Josh cut himself as a manipulation tactic to make her feel bad and remain with him. Another person claimed that he had self-inflicted cigarette burns on his arm. Regardless, the parents did not forcibly end the relationship, meaning the troubling aspects were allowed to fester for the time being. Frank then posted art depicting his persona and Caitlyn together, wielding several firearms, ready for combat. Possibly due to influence from Frank and Josh, Caitlyn herself began showing signs of an interest in a military career, although that never materialized due to the events that were about to transpire. Just 5 days prior to their crimes, Josh and Felix could be seen hanging out at a public park, seemingly without a care in the world. They were jousting at a barbecue for the SoCal Furries, the same group that they had met as a part of. According to those who attended, Caitlyn was actually with them, donning her new fursuit head. Meanwhile, by late 2016, Felix's posts on social media had been getting more and more dark. I gave you so many chances, and you kept coming back to me when you needed to pick me up. Yet, you seemed to like what I offered. You loved how honest and real I was compared to what you looked for, but that fact was also why you hated me. I could tell when you were lying and faking, and when you were real. And if anything, I was the only person to really satisfy you in all ways possible. Sad thing I know is you're trying to kill all of those feelings and try and never come back to me. But you will. It's in your nature. But I might not welcome you back as openly and warmly as before without you confessing the truth, completely and openly. And even then, I know you'll still lie to me. You're just afraid to be open with people that can raise you like a European city during the Second World War. I just hope you're gonna regret everything you've done to me and everything you could have done and live with that guilt you've put on yourself every day. While it's quite likely this was directed towards Caitlyn and referencing the situation she had with her parents due to their relationship, it could technically be about someone else, given Frank's proclivity to be with multiple people at once. As far as we know, the relationship was still going on at the time, so it's equally possible this was about someone else, a past relationship, or just Frank delusionally LARPing, as he is prone to do. Whatever the case, on September 19th, 2016, Frank Felix messaged a man named Cody Dunn on Facebook, confessing to him that he was about to commit a horrible crime. Frank asks his friend what he's up to which he responds, "Nothing much, just fixing my bike. What are you up to?" Frank responds saying he's trying to relax, but having a hard time due to some things he can't talk about. Cody responded, "I feel like everyone from the fandom just doesn't want me to be a part of anything, so I don't care if you're stressed out from a fandom-related thing, don't talk to me about it. But when I want to be a friend and chat, grow up, put a smile on, and bite that shit, and chew, not nibble, goes by quicker." If you haven't noticed, both of these people type like they're having a stroke at all times. Whatever the case, Frank responded, clarifying, "It's not fandom related. I might be assisting someone in murder." Bro, you did or didn't, not you might. You've been up ever since I moved to Big Bear. Frank responds with a ... Cody then responds by saying, "You make your own decisions. If you want to help murder someone, you're going to have to suffer the consequences, or you can stop it from happening and get rewarded. You have a choice in this one. I didn't. I was framed and prosecuted for something I didn't do." Clear as day, Frank indicates his intention to kill someone. However, he then backtracked and lied, saying he was talking about killing an animal instead. Cody became frustrated with him, saying, "What are you about then? It's not murder. Unless it's somebody's pet, then they may get pissed and charge you. But you won't be charged with murder, more like animal cruelty." If Cody had read between the lines a bit more, he may have figured out what Frank was planning to do, and maybe even been able to do something about it. But instead, he took his friend at his word. In the following days, either Josh or Felix made a trip to a hardware store to purchase bolt cutters, although it's difficult to ascertain which one actually did it. What is certain is that the cutters were used to unlock Felix's father's shotgun, which he then gave to Josh, along with earplugs for protection from the sound of the blasts. They arrived at the family home during the late hours of September 24th, 2016. Inside was Caitlyn Yost, her two younger sisters, Chris and Jennifer Yost, as well as Billy Boucher, a family friend whom Caitlyn referred to as her uncle, despite having no blood ties. Billy's presence in the house was due to the fact that he had a 3-year-old son who lived with his mother nearby, and being at the Yost house meant he could stay closer to him during his allowed visitation hours. Billy had actually known the couple since high school, so him staying there was hardly out of the ordinary. On Facebook, Jennifer posted that night saying she was making lasagna. Just a typical night in the Yost family household, with no suspicion that anything strange was going to happen. Josh Acosta approached the house unarmed, speaking with the family on friendly terms. This was likely so he could case the house and get an understanding of who was inside each room. Meanwhile, Caitlyn was packing her bags. She was fully on board with leaving the family behind, apparently so that she could be with Felix. Once her parents were asleep, Caitlyn simply texted Josh a plus sign, their secret code that she was ready to go. She left the house to go to the truck, which was waiting with Felix inside, along with his firearm. Josh then took the firearm and re-entered the home. The first person he saw was Billy Boucher, asleep on the couch. Josh Acosta instantly took his life. He then marched onto their parents' room, finding Jennifer and Chris Yost. Jennifer didn't even have a chance to leave her bed, as she was shot immediately. But after that, Josh's weapon jammed, and he struggled to reload it. This gave Chris time to try and flee, as he ran to the back door of the home. But unfortunately, he never even got to the backyard, as Josh followed him, cleared the jam, and executed Chris Yost in his own home. The three then fled the scene in Frank's truck, leaving behind Caitlyn's two sisters. At 8:20 a.m., emergency services received a call from a 6-year-old girl who stated, "Mom and Dad and Billy died." Meanwhile, her older sister was nowhere to be found. Frank Felix later claimed that the killings were intended to look like a robbery gone wrong, but naturally, given nothing in the house had been stolen, and the oldest near-adult child living in the house was also missing, it didn't take them long to figure out that this was far from a case of petty burglary. Caitlyn's extended family assumed this was a case of kidnapping, putting up missing posters and asking anyone with information to send it to the Orange County Crime Stoppers. A manhunt had officially begun, as the police were aware that whoever had committed the crime was still at large and could be on their way to create more victims. While they were on the run, a friend of theirs from the Southern California Furries group texted Frank, asking what had happened, to which he claimed that the murders had nothing to do with him. It took 2 whole days for the three to be found. Frank and Caitlyn were caught traveling alone, and Josh was picked up as he tried to return to his normal life at his army base. Frank and Caitlyn were arrested, with Caitlyn being taken to a juvenile detention center and her boyfriend being moved to jail. In the immediate aftermath, family and friends would grieve their loss. In regards to Boucher, his uncle remarked that he was a good kid who had simply been at the wrong place at the wrong time. Meanwhile, Pacho Fur, founder of the Furry Dog Patch Press, posted a statement regarding the events, lamenting the crime and stating that it was everything the community stood against. Their family friend, Melinda Giles, a fellow furry, canceled numerous Southern California furry events in accordance with mourning the family's passing. Meanwhile, Boucher's mother was one of the few to immediately pinpoint that the murders had something to do with Caitlyn, specifically referencing the relationship she had with Frank Felix. She said, "It just seemed there was always something going on with that teenager." Meanwhile, some of her online friends found out about what had happened, with one of them even going to the scene of the crime to leave a lit candle in memory of the family's deaths. This same person, going by the name of Blue, commented saying that they saw troubling signs before the events that ultimately took place. Looking back at previous fur meets and dramas, there was evidence of trouble brewing. Someone would have foreseen this happening. With that sentiment in mind, investigators began picking apart what had led to such a grisly crime. Based on his online history, it was already apparent that Felix was somewhat disturbed, and based on his Facebook Facebook messages, he was clearly ready to commit the crime he eventually was sentenced for. Despite this, he attempted to lie about his involvement to prosecutors, initially claiming that his actions were done under duress as he was afraid of Josh, meaning he wasn't ultimately responsible for what happened. But under questioning, he later admitted to helping him procure the firearm and planning the attack. That didn't stop him from claiming in a letter to his mother that he only confessed out of fear for what Josh may do if he was out of jail. The cops didn't seem to buy it. Apart from their online communication, it was also pointed out that the two had been in contact via letters. One letter from Frank Felix to Josh Acosta contained, and I quote, "a drawing of a sexually androgynous anthropomorphic horse with human breasts." I wish I was kidding. But that still fails to answer the question of why the murder happened. Your immediate assumption may be that it was due to Frank's clear infatuation with Caitlyn. He was madly in love with her, but she was too young, and the Yost parents disapproved. So he planned a murder so that he could run away with her and be with her without the parents' disapproval. There certainly is some truth to that, as Felix messaged Caitlyn after the murders, stating that they could start a new life together and make her younger sisters their children. Additionally, several people claim that the parents had explicitly forbidden Caitlyn from seeing Felix. Jennifer Yost told her several weeks ago that she had forbidden Felix from seeing her daughter. To protect her daughter, Chris and Jen were like, "We don't want you to be friends with our daughter anymore." Seems pretty open and shut, right? Well, unfortunately, that is far from the end of the story. When the police found Acosta at his post at Fort Irwin, they discovered he had 3 bullet casings from the event in his pockets, but he still initially tried to deny any involvement. But when further questioned, Josh claimed that the reason for the murder was not because of the forbidden relationship. Instead, it was because Caitlyn had told him and Felix that she was being molested by her stepfather, Chris Yost. As a result of this belief, he showed no remorse for his crimes whatsoever. That family is a twisted, wretched cesspool, and it's a festering wound. I cauterized that festering wound. When asked why he had killed their friend, Billy Boucher, he said that he was simply collateral, describing him as a monkey wrench in his plans. His claimed motivation for the killing was that Caitlyn was being serially abused by her parents, and that by taking them out, he was saving her from further suffering, and saving other potential victims from the same fate. He further stated he was indifferent on if his life ended with the case, saying he was just glad that a little girl was now safe and sound. His friend, Frank Felix, also independently claimed that his motive for the crime was the suffering she was experiencing at the hands of her stepfather, before admitting that he could have just called the police instead of planning a triple homicide and then going to jail. Them both claiming this while they were not allowed contact between them because they were being held by the police seems to indicate that both of them were told this by Caitlyn, and it's not some lie they came up with on the spot to make themselves seem like heroes. But what about Caitlyn? Due to her age, prosecutors were initially apprehensive to charge her.
Prosecutors are still deciding whether a 17-year-old who was also arrested will be charged as an adult.
Well, we first have to establish that Caitlyn's testimony on what happened that day has been inconsistent at best. When she was first questioned after her arrest in 2018, she claimed that her mother was physically abusive and that her stepfather had been guilty of much worse. In court, Caitlyn testified that she had been molested by her stepfather on a weekly basis from the ages of 7 to 15. She says that she told Felix and Josh about what had happened because she needed help running away from home, but she also said that she had never encouraged either of them to kill the family. She also corroborated that her parents disapproved of the relationship, but also added another detail. She claimed that when she told Frank about what had happened, instead of helping her, he used the information as blackmail, using it to demand sexual favors. If she didn't comply, he would tell her mother. She stated that once Josh arrived at the house, she had second thoughts about the entire thing, but ultimately caved to pressure out of fear of what he may do. This story very well could be true, and I say could because whatever the case really is, we can never truly know what happened. The suspect, if there even could be one in this situation, is dead, and no police reports were ever filed against Chris Yost in regards to this case, and on top of that, there was no evidence suggesting that Caitlyn was being abused by her stepfather. Josh's attorney also pointed out that in the days before the event, Caitlyn had messaged a friend where she discussed the frequent arguments she had with her mom, and made remarks about killing someone. Ever looked at someone and wondered how many ways I can kill them right now? I have. Caitlyn said that these messages were simply role-playing, as at the time, she was acting as a part of her online alias. For some of the other related messages, she simply stated that she didn't even remember writing them. It's also stated in an article from the Orange County Register that Melinda Giles, a friend of Jennifer Yost, told the press that just a few weeks before the event, Jennifer had called her and expressed worry about Caitlyn seeing Felix. All I know is that Jennifer called me very distraught a few weeks back, telling me that she didn't want Felix around her daughter anymore. In November of 2018, jury deliberations began for Josh. He had already confessed, so the likelihood that he could work out a lighter sentence was extremely low. Here, it's revealed that on the night of the killings themselves, Caitlyn claimed she had planned planned to tell her mother about what her stepfather was doing to her. But at the same time, this also acknowledged that Caitlyn had lied to prosecutors. And I quote, "Caitlyn acknowledged that she had repeatedly lied to police and prosecutors, at times telling them that her mother had physically abused her or denying telling anyone about the alleged sexual abuse. However, in exchange for her cooperation with the police, she was granted immunity, allowing her to tell her full side of the story without any legal repercussions." In court, Josh's attorney would heavily question her and went even further. He claimed that she wanted her parents dead and was attempting to manipulate someone into killing them. But keep in mind, his motivation is to protect Josh. He attempted to excuse the killings on account of Josh's autism. It did not work, as Josh was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without parole. Frank's attorney and family attempted a similar defense strategy. His mother claimed that he was far from an evil mastermind and instead had been influenced into committing the crime due to his naivete. His defense attorney also pointed out that he suffered from anxiety and depression, had no prior record, and, unlike Josh, had shown remorse for being involved in the killings. Ultimately, none of this was enough for the jury, as he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In the background of the mainstream media coverage, several figures came forward to contribute new information to the public discourse. It's worth noting that these claims are unverified, but if true, they do give us some insight into who the killers were before their crimes and what the Yost parents were like before their deaths. I'll organize these comments by the people they concern, beginning with Frank Felix, Caitlyn's boyfriend. In a YouTube comment, one user stated that she met Felix at her home through her daughter, a fellow furry. She claimed that Felix did seem strange, but nothing too out of the ordinary as far as she was concerned. As far as Josh goes, one user named Hamburger Supreme joined the gossip forum Kiwi Farms in September of 2016, claiming to be a friend of Josh's through school. He first stated that Josh Acosta was very open about his involvement with the furry community, regularly filling the user in about whatever the latest online furry or brony drama was. He also stated that he was open about his more sexual interests in the brony fandom, talking to the user about clopping, which is code for brony not safe for work material. But he made it clear that the guy was far from normal, adding that when he brought him over to his house, he gave his family the creeps to the point that his younger siblings hid in the closet when he was around. He stated that he was extremely socially awkward, avoiding eye contact at all costs. However, the user never saw him as a potential murderer. He went on to recall his lack of social skills and knowing what is generally socially appropriate. When he returned from basic training for the army, he showed up at my family's doorstep at damn near midnight to say hello and let me know he was back. Before then, we had talked once a month since he had left on the phone. He was the president of a brony group that was always full of and he acted like he needed to move both heaven and earth to keep together. He left for the army last March and had a going away party where he had done a super formal changing of the guard procedure. When he got back, he told me that he had merged it with the local furry club. He went on to say that he saw Josh as too much of a coward to carry out the murder. However, in tandem, he claimed that Josh messaged him just 1 week before the murder, showing off his new AR-15. While this may be true, keep in mind this is not the murder weapon, which instead was Felix's father's shotgun. He also said that Josh struck him as a very sexually frustrated person. Before he entered the army and was telling me about his going away party, he confided in me that he wanted to lose his virginity to a woman before shipping off back east. Since then, I remember him telling me that he was bisexual over the summer. I also remember him mentioning meeting a boyfriend on base. For verification of his crimes, he posted a unique photo of Josh at McDonald's. Given the level of detail and specificity of the posts, it's likely there is at least some truth to this account. In September of 2016, another user, Garvey's Love Child, also joined the forum. They claimed to have known the family, with their own daughter being friends with Caitlyn, and they had a lot to say. 1. I could not stand Caitlyn. She was obnoxious and a pathological liar. She showed zero respect for myself, my wife, and even my mom when we brought her along to see a movie with us. This fueled speculations that Caitlyn may have lied about her stepfather and what she supposedly suffered from under his care. 2. Caitlyn at the time spent a lot of time watching 1000 Ways to Die. While this is relatively harmless in most contexts, this could be a sign of Caitlyn having a morbid fascination with death and killing. 3. Caitlyn was an enthusiastic furry. I think she thought of it as a way to bond with her mother. This much is already clear, given her mother became a furry before Caitlyn could have even been aware of what the fandom was or what it was about. 4. Caitlyn and her mother wanted to take my daughter to one of their furry meets. When that happened, my daughter was no longer allowed to visit her house. 5. Jennifer seemed like a recovering addict. She had the slurred speech of an alcoholic, yet never smelled of alcohol. I think she cared deeply for her kids, but either didn't want or know how to set boundaries for them. 6. Chris was very quiet. He didn't talk to me, his wife, or kids any of the times I was there. He just hung out in the kitchen or his room playing his guitar. Either he was a kept man or a good guy just trying to do what's expected of him. 7. They lived in conditions. The house was run down and hardly had any furniture. There was a distinct white trash feel to the place. Although we don't have many photos of the inside of the home, we do know they lived in a pretty small house and were a low-income family by all accounts. I don't say this to disparage them, but more to say that this state of affairs was likely part of what led them to become so engaged with the furry fandom. It was an escape from their circumstances. This user went on to make other claims about the family as well, saying that Caitlyn often lied about completely pointless subjects and possibly had some mild behavioral issues. He would also point out one other connection, claiming that Caitlyn may have been mistreated by someone outside of the family. He links to a Facebook post which shows a photo of Billy and his son, posted from Billy Boucher's account. The third photo seems to show that a man named Aaron Ronald Corrales is now officially on the sex offender registry. A comment on the post from Billy seems to indicate that Aaron Corrales had some kind of inappropriate interaction with a 12-year-old girl when he was 20 years of age. Some people at the time speculated that, if true, Caitlyn may have projected her feelings towards what happened to her onto her stepfather, due to the fact that he and her mother were not comfortable with her seeing Frank. However, given that the perpetrator of the aforementioned crime, Ronald, was arrested in 2006, it's unlikely this case is related, as Caitlyn would have been much younger than 12 at the time. The user also commented on Caitlyn's academic performance issues. I know she struggled academically, but I don't know how bad it was. Around me, she seemed below average for age, but not an imbecile. Her online presence shows that her writing skills were pretty terrible. And while it's anecdotal, he would go on to say he didn't believe any physical harm had come to her from her parents. I don't think there was any physical abuse going on in that house. There was a negative vibe there, but it felt more neglectful than abusive. Some would say neglect is abuse, but I think you'll understand my meaning. I just can't square Jennifer caring enough to forbid the relationship with Felix by abusing Caitlyn or allowing her to be abused. He'd go on to say that he believed Caitlyn was attending furry events when she was as young as 14 years old, which does seem to be the case based on her online history. Given that furry accounts often have sexualized artwork, and furries aren't exactly known for their prudeness, it's possible she was exposed to some things that she shouldn't have really been around, although there's no evidence on this specific claim. Elsewhere, other furries would express concern that the Yost case could reflect negatively on the fandom in general. One user stated, "Great, now CSI might do something with furries again," referring to an episode of CSI from the early 2000s that featured a sex-crazed furry group. Directly after the murders, relatives of the Yost had created a GoFundMe to raise money for the care of the two youngest daughters. The initial description read, "The unimaginable has happened to two little innocent girls who are now left without parents to raise them. Our hearts are completely broken and will miss them every single day that passes. We will remember the good times we had and remind these two beautiful girls of how much they were loved by their parents. The girls are 6 and 8 and will need all the help they can get in this extremely tragic event. The most recent updates state that they are doing well and living with a family member permanently." It's likely we'll never have a full picture of what exactly happened with the Yost family. On one hand, it's clear that both Josh Acosta and Felix had some serious issues and were potentially primed to commit a crime of this nature. On the other hand, the inconsistency of Caitlyn's testimony leaves much up for debate. Whatever the case, it serves as a grim reminder that these things do happen, and it leaves two young men serving life sentences. Meanwhile, the Yost daughters continue on without parents, and Caitlyn's location or what her life has become since the murders is entirely unknown. In his closing statement against Josh Acosta, District Attorney Troy Pino stated, "I don't think any of us will ever know if there is any truth to the allegations against Chris Yost." Meanwhile, Jennifer Yost DeviantArt now serves as a memorial page, with commenters expressing their sadness at her passing. I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.